All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are doing a preview and prediction for the Liberty Bowl going down on Friday, December 27th from Memphis, Tennessee, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. 52.5 is the total. Texas Tech is now 1.5 point favorites over Arkansas Razorbacks. Getting things started with the Texas Tech offense on the Arkansas defense. There's a lot to monitor here. Brennan Morton, the quarterback for the Red Raiders, he'll be out following surgery, regarding an injury. Taj Brooks, he's still going to be playing, though. The lead back, looks like he's not going to be opting out. Nothing has indicated that he will not be playing. 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns this season. Phenomenal runner for them. Other than that, Josh Kelly, he'll be opting out. But for the most part, this offense will be intact. Brooks is obviously going to command a heavy workload. Will Hammond, freshman quarterback from Austin, played a good bit against TCU. I thought he looked pretty solid in that game. He was 10 of 15, 121 yards, a touchdown in the 1-point loss. That's the only game action he's really seen this year. Caleb Douglas will be his leading pass catcher, 762 yards and 6 scores. And then Coy Aiken, Jalen Conyers, and then Brooks will do some work as a pass catcher as well. So this is an offense that's going to be full hands on deck, it appears, other than those noted guys. Arkansas, on the other hand, this team is absolutely littered with injuries, transfers, a couple of opt-outs. Most importantly, on defense, Landon Jackson and Eric Gregory. And then Brad Spence at linebacker doesn't look like he'll be playing. And then safety TJ Metcalf, who is a starter. They also have a rotational defensive end, Nico Davilier, as well. So the Arkansas numbers, Nick, 25 points per game allowed in terms of yardage given up. Only 366 yards, solid run defense, not that great against the pass. It seems like they're probably going to be a lot worse, though, in this game. But at the same time, they're kind of blessed by facing a backup quarterback in his first career start, who ultimately has the advantage here. I know there's a lot to take in.
I do like what this Texas Tech offense still has, regardless of the losses they have, because they have that wild X factor in Taj Brooks. Brooks is an incredible back. We've seen him dominate on the ground this year. 17 rushing touchdowns for him, 5.3 yards per carry, 286 carries on the season, 1,500 yards rushing. Also has about 200 yards receiving on 28 grabs and a touchdown out of the backfield. So he's a multi-tool threat in the passing game and rushing game. He's a guy you can rely on. This is a guy that's been very reliable for this offense and a player that you could really give the ball to a bunch in this game, have him tote the rock over and over again, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. This is a guy that can carry the ball multiple times a game, a ton of times per game. Had about 140 yards per game on the ground, so I expect a similar type production out of him to give Hammond, to relieve that pressure and let Hammond be comfortable. Hammond looked okay in the TCU game, not really too worried about his performance in that matchup. I think he's a talented player. He's a young kid who's certainly learning and developing, but I don't think it's a big issue at all for this offense. And I think this is an offense that could just run the ball a lot. Losing Josh Kelly certainly hurts. Kelly was a very strong wide receiver, the top receiver for this team, but the rest of the guys are playing and they're solid players. Caleb Douglas, Coy Aiken are really solid players. Each of them have over 600 yards receiving, about 14 yards per grab, 6 touchdowns for both of them. Jalen Conyers as well, tight end, has 5 touchdowns and 300 yards receiving, so another good piece to help out on this offense. This is a good offense, I think, has a matchup advantage here against a banged up and battered Arkansas defense that you listed some names there. They're missing a lot of very talented pieces who are either hurt or entering the portal, defensive end players in the secondary that are missing right now. Definitely a tough issue. TJ Metcalf was a phenomenal safety for this team, and he's ended up transferring. He signed with Michigan. That's a player that they certainly are not happy to lose in this situation. This looks like a good matchup advantage for Texas Tech.
They do have some nice guys still playing, though. Danico Slaughter's a big hitter. Xavier Sori's been a great producer. The Georgia transfer, Steven Dix, a veteran linebacker. Jaden Johnson in the back end. So they still have some guys that are going to be competing in this game. But for the most part, it's probably going to be a bit of an issue. Mid-level offensive line for Texas Tech. Right tackle Caleb Rogers. He's a phenomenal player. He'll be playing in this one. Passing attack, though, things should stay the same. Zach Kitley, offensive coordinator, he's gone. But not much really changes. The air raid type of offense, they're going to look to go out there and still put up great numbers. Over 38 points per game. 460 yards per game as well. And you see it on screen right there. 14 of the 25 sacks don't appear to be playing in this game. We can't fully confirm it because some of these guys will enter the portal and still play, but they do have 2 opt-outs that are confirmed. So down at least 5 notable players on the defensive side of the ball. They're 108th against the pass. Don't generate many negative plays. So it seems like this might favor into Texas Tech's hands. Moving to the other side of the ball, Arkansas offense. It was pretty solid this year. Taylon Green comes over from Boise State. 13 touchdowns through the air, another 7 on the ground. 3,300 yards of production. That's very good for a debut season in this conference. Ran up those numbers in a couple of different games, though, so maybe it doesn't tell the full story. But they're still vastly improved compared to a season ago. Taylon Green, it's really just going to be him out there and you speak about opt-outs and injuries and whatnot. I mean, this is an offense that is completely littered with guys being out. Top 2 running backs are gone, including Jaquindon Jackson. 6 of the top 7 pass catchers, which also include the running backs. 6 scholarship offensive linemen is what they're down to. The entire interior offensive line is gone. This is a massively depleted unit, and you think that would be a major edge for the Red Raiders, Nick. Well, guess what? On the other side of the ball, they're awful. So this is as strange as it gets, and I think this is what makes Bowl Mania interesting, but also frustrating as a bettor, because you don't know which way to lean. 121st in points per game allowed, almost dead last in pass defense. They're solid versus the run, though, and I think that's going to be the biggest key here, because Arkansas is likely going to try to pound the rock a great deal. Braylon Russell entered the portal twice, withdrawn twice. I don't know what that's even about. I think Rodney Hill, I think he's going to be all hands on deck for this game. I think he might be transferred. I'll double check on that. But Braylon Russell looks like he'll be the number 1 back, a guy that has a lot of power, 253 pounds. Jackson Green, that is, as well, as a big body. So they got 2 guys that are going to bring some physicality to the group. But Texas Tech, Nick, this might just play into their hands, because there's not going to be many guys threatening them downfield. Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts, the top 2 linebackers, will be in this game. So it seems like they're going to just come down to who can stop the run or run the ball well, and I think Red Raiders might be able to get the job done.
This is certainly not looking like a good matchup for this Arkansas offense that is just absolutely depleted and really running on empty right now. They're a very weak unit that's really run down to a few different players who are going to play in this matchup. Isaac Tesla looks to be the one wide receiver getting the go here. He had 438 yards receiving, 17.5 yards to grab, and 3 scores on the season. He's going to get some targets here. He's a solid player. He had 360 snaps on the season, so a guy you certainly can rely on a little bit, but not to be your number 1 guy in this situation. Rodney Hill also had 103 yards rushing and 2 scores. He's been battling some injuries. Best snap count about 115 on the season. He looks to be the number 1 running back. Questions on what could his production look like. He hasn't played a whole lot this season. CJ Brown, the wide receiver, that's looking at the list I'm seeing there, he's got the third highest snaps of all the receivers. He only has 1 grab this season, so a very depleted offense. I think Taylon Green's going to run the ball a lot in this game. We've seen him run the ball a lot this past season. 521 yards rushing, 3.7 yards per carry, and 7 scores for him. A solid passer, had a good season, 6% comp rate, 2,000 yards passing, 13 touchdowns. All good numbers, but I think they're going to try and run the ball a lot here because they just don't have an offensive weapons at all, really, and that's a massive problem for this team. You highlighted the Texas Tech defense. That's just not a very good unit. They've struggled a lot this season. Giving up 305 yards per game through the air is not a good number at all. 2.2 touchdowns per game through the air as well. Also gave 146 yards per game on the ground. They have a lot of their key players playing, which I think is certainly benefiting this Texas Tech team. It's one cohesive unit, but they're just not been very good at all this year. It's been a bit of an issue, a struggle point for this defense. For this team, Harvey Dyson most likely not playing. He was a key player for them, but he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, so not the biggest loss in the world. In general, there are some solid players like Ben Roberts, Jacob Rodriguez, 2 linebackers. Rodriguez 118 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, while Roberts has 78 total tackles and 5 tackles for loss at linebacker, a key leader for this defense. Can those 2 have a good day here? I think it's certainly possible. I'm really confused and concerned about where the offense is going to come from with Arkansas. This team just looks so depleted. Going to be a tough coaching job for Sam Pittman.
Yeah, and you alluded to Isaac Tesla. Seems like he's going to get a ton of targets in this one. After that, Tyrone Broden looks like he's doubtful, not going to be playing. So it's going to be a lot of youthful players, including Monty Harrison, who I used in MLB The Show a couple years ago to steal bases. So, that just shows you how depleted they are. Former baseball player there. It's going to have to be a top target in this one. So there's a lot of numbers here on screen, Nick, but I don't think for Arkansas it's going to really represent the full picture. I think for Texas Tech it will, though. I really like C.J. Baskerville, 4 interceptions. Pretty solid on third downs as well. As long as you're not getting carved up through the air, they should do pretty good. But Arkansas, they're going to try and pound the rock, I think, in this one. Looking at the final preview and the final prediction for the Liberty Bowl, Nick's going with a bit of a more lopsided score, and I can see it. I've seen this too many times, Nick, in bowl season where a bunch of teams have opt-outs, but they're down to the third and fourth stringers, but they face such a bad defense that they're still able to put up numbers. And I think that might be the case here for Arkansas. I don't think this will be a complete beatdown, even though it probably should be, but I think the matchup they have is still one that's quite favorable. So I'll pick a closer game, 37-30. I think the over is vastly in play here. I know a lot of people are probably going to pick the under. Texas Tech quarterback is out. Arkansas is, we already talked about how depleted they are. 52.5 just seems pretty low for teams that can score. 2 teams that put up 30-plus this year. I think we'll be in that ballpark again. I could be totally wrong, but I think we're just going to be in for a little bit more action than expected. I think that's why you see the books not really heavily favoring the Red Raiders until today, where the line just now flipped, because this has all been prior knowledge, Nick, that these guys aren't playing. So I'll take Texas Tech in a more of a shootout. You'll pick them by double figures.
I'll tell you my double figures. I do have the over barely clearing at 55 with the total, depending on where your book is at. 52, 51.5, depending on what you get at 52.5. So I think the over's in play here too. I agree on that. I think it will be a little bit closer for me. I just see this. I don't think this Texas Tech defense is phenomenal, which is why I'm giving Arkansas 20 points. But this Arkansas offense is so depleted that I think they just have a tough time keeping up on the field. And I think Texas Tech will ultimately get enough stops on third down to get the ball back, put some points on the board, and pull away. This is an offense that's a little bit battered for the Red Raiders, but I think with Brooks, you can just run the ball with him over and over again. He's a very effective runner, and he's just a key player on the field for me in this matchup. I like the Red Raiders here. This is a very good team that had a solid season under Joe McGuire. I think they're a really good value for money here. This is a team I think can really play a strong game here. I like what this Red Raiders team looks like. I'm going to take them to win this game by double figures and feel pretty good about it.
That's me for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.